Well, good morning as we're sitting here at LTV on this beautiful morning, Friday morning, May 24th, year 2024, here with the Hello Hello Show. And we're continuing with the tradition of public access and, of course, the tradition of the Hello Hello Show that's been on the air since 1980, believe it or not. Of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty, Francis Ann, and, of course, the likes of you out there that make it your business to enhance and fortify this wonderful concept called public access. With us is Mike Kilcoyne. Just a quick introduction to the limited amount of information that I have about this guy, other than we
Do you want me
met,
to just feed you lines?
other than we met in circumstances and ended up realizing that there's a compatibility when it comes to interaction and stuff like that. So first of all, Mike, thank you so much for showing up.
Thank
I
you.
saw you at the coffee shop, and here you are. So how about a few words, Mike about
Yeah.
himself and how we kind of.
A few words. Hi, I'm Mike. I like long walks on the beach, coffee shops. I'm a filmmaker, producer, other things, stuff. Stuff.
I love it.
I like riding. I like running. I'm very sweaty. I ran this morning, so I'm still covered in sweat. What else? I don't know.
So
I'm a Jew.
the reason
Also.
why I believe that this moment is precious is because when we sat at Chabad and we had this kind of brief segments of conversations, as much as one uh, can have under these circumstances.
Sure.
But there's something. You look at a person and you say, I like the fact that his purpose is not so obvious, but he knows what his purpose is. He knows what his purpose is. I mean, I don't know if it makes any sense to you. So I wonder about that. I mean, you have any reaction to this?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I think to a lot of people, I am sort of an enigma, but I have a very clear idea of what I want to do, which is I just want to make movies. Like, and it started with just like literally like this. And I had a course here at LTV where I talked about this, but, it was just me like literally using video to communicate to people. And then now it's evolved into actually making like TV series and documentaries and stuff like that. But I think that's a thing that I've always wanted to do. I didn't really know that or really connect with it until like 7 or 8 years ago. Now, that's just it's my thing.
So would you have other stages through which you will be able to achieve the same thing, like writing or like
yeah.
for that sake, even if you're not an artist yourself, appreciating art in itself is also a quality that can increase that level of sensitivity. And the thing is, with interaction and with conversation that becomes meaningful, it's more the compatibility of the two participants, so to speak, to be so unaware of themselves and therefore becoming aware of the moment, and the moment produces what? It produces pearls.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't mind this. I get it. It's a way of interacting with people, but I think often when especially like out here, you go to events and it's like, what do you do? And what, and like at the end of the day, I find that stuff interesting because if you're like an artist and you've been doing, I mean, as you mentioned, you've done the show for almost a decade longer than I've been alive, which is amazing. Like that stuff is interesting to me, but not like, I'm super hyper successful in this and whatever. It's like, that's cool. But like,
Yeah.
I just want to know like what drives you as a person, what excites you, what, is compelling. Like, I don't really give a can I curse on this?
Preferably not.
Okay,
But
all
anyway,
right.
but
Have I already cursed already?
No, you didn't.
Okay, good.
But the thing is that that message has to go from point A to point B.
Sure.
Obviously, if you want to make movies and you can do any other thing for that sake, it's got to have an evolutionary process, a live evolutionary process. I'm sure you're aware of the fact that, on one hand, we can be worldly, we can go have coffee and socialize with people, and on the other, the weight of that duty of ours to create or to express that which is meaningful to us is very vivid, just as much as that worldly individual roaming all over the place. So also the philosophizing and trying to get to the bottom of things.
Yeah. Well,
So I noticed that about you. That's why I said this long.
I'm trying to get to the bottom. Yeah.
No. By being thorough, by just by way of conversation, you can tell about people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think well, certainly like I connect with other Jews generally quite well, and that's just like a thing I've noticed in that, like, Jews are my people, and I don't know. I think what's interesting about that is, like, as a Jew, I think you're forced to sort of figure out how to, because you're always sort of like an outsider. At least that's my perspective or experience as an
Still,
American Jew.
I
But
want to kind of just.
so
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
yeah, I'm
No, I'm
probably
sorry that
getting
I'm
off the rails.
interrupting you. No, I mean, I can
Please,
relate to every word you say.
yeah,
I want to go. I want to go to try and get to the heart of what the message is that is so worthwhile. On our behalf to give so much time, so much effort, so many sleepless nights, so many dreams, so many
mm.
contemplations and visualization and socialization and you name it. And then for the most part we're not really aware that we know brightly and clearly what the message is. Why am I doing this?
Mm.
Why am I embarking on this journey? And you know what, it can be your own private obsession. It
Yeah,
doesn't have to be a crowd pleaser,
sure,
whether you do this and that. So I know you can relate to that, obviously.
yeah.
So you making movies, what exactly, what story does it tell you about you?
I think I just like to create. For me, it's about telling or conveying a message, right? Like it's just and whether that's through writing or whether that's through art or otherwise, it doesn't really matter to me. But I have been drawn to film because I think it's, for me, the most logical. I think it's the most interesting, um, to create and sort of concoct. So I think that's why I've always been like drawn to that, because it's just a way of communicating messages to people in a way like that. If you do it well, is like, oh my god, whoa, that's cool, and then also you get your point across,
Yeah,
and similar to like art can do that too, and it speaks differently to different people.
yeah,
Well, I mean, it's all art, right? But like, what I mean by that is like the form of like painting and media and so on that you're drawn
yeah.
to.
By all
Yeah.
means, and they have their connecting points. Between yeah, I play the drums and write poetry and paint paintings. So when I paint paintings, I
Yeah.
feel safe, mainly because I I know that I have this power of cross implementation, as
Yeah.
lousy and as limited as it might be, but I can relate from if I have a difficulty here and now in this medium, and I go to two other mediums, and for that sake, when I say I mean, if other people would have those two others, would be a you know a solid point of reference.
Yeah. Yeah. I would be
And
curious, like, what if you made a movie, like what it would look like.
yeah, I I can't help you with that.
Well, the reason why I
I,
bring that up is because, like, I had this class, and a lot of the people who were doing it was an iPhone, filmmaking course, and what I found interesting was that people who I think for the most part were generally beginners had a very unique and interesting perspective. And I just remember there's one woman in class. She just had like it was seemingly like very sort of like off the cuff, but she was just like talking to this bookstore owner. I think it's SAG, and sorry, this is the long story.
yeah,
She's talking to this in SAG,
go for it. Go
and
for
but
it.
and
It's okay.
she held the shot on her in a way that she captured this like really sort of like funny, quirky reaction, and I was like, that's interesting because I would never do it that way, or I would never think to hold on that shot that long, and so I just am thinking about that. I'm like, how would you do things differently, and then how could that inform how I make stuff?
Yeah. You know what? I took in the late 90s workshop with David Ignatov.
Okay,
I don't know if you, I mean, he's not with us any longer, but
sure.
he was quite a big name, you know. He was the type of a teacher that will tell you, I want you to take my hand and to walk me through and pause whenever you need to and go about it however you want, but I want you to make me become acquainted with everything that you do, everything that you think, everything that you act. And he was obsessed with that. And I realized, okay, well, that's his style. Yes, I can appreciate that. But there's a really very appealing truth in it. Like you say,
Mm.
okay, I woke up 6th Avenue and for some reason this sign on that clear glass drew my attention. And I go and I see, for God's sakes, that's a bagel store. You know, I never thought that.
Huh.
I
Yeah.
never saw it there before. And then you look and then you contemplate whether you should go in or not. And
Yeah.
then but you're contemplating, and while you're contemplating you're not going in, so at least you know you're not going in. But then you form a relationship with the bagel that you can see it through the glass,
Mm.
and that is becoming a factor in you making decisions. Should I go in or not to
Sure.
buy? So now at this stage you say, okay, now you took my hand, you know, now I have my hand in your hand, and you're going to take me to whether it is into the store or turning around going somewhere else, but you're taking me. So I thought he was an asshole and maybe could be a jerk now and then,
Oh, so you kind of curse on this.
disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you many things, but I got something very important from him.
Mm.
So then I go to the painting and I say, well, how do I take what his instructions to relate to the canvas? What's the
Yeah.
difference? He wouldn't know the difference.
Yes.
If I tell him I need your help emotionally and spiritually and technically, whatever, I need your help, then then you're taking it seriously. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I need you to work with me here, kind of thing. You know,
Yeah.
but in that realm, there's a something that shows up and kind of steals your mind for a second, and you're like feeling like, well, maybe I should let it go. You know, there's so much available right here anyway.
Sure.
I'm not going to turn around and waste my energies trying to chase it. Half of the times you don't even know why you're chasing it. So it's detached. That means it's telling you you're just about to connect something new ahead. So you want to rationalize all these things and you want to borrow from what he said to the canvas. So now you're facing a. Speaking of a long story.
No, this is good.
So now you're saying to yourself, yes, like um, you want to summarizing what the difficulties are that you're facing now with the canvas, and then bringing into the equation something that you learned that helped you with the other medium. Why wouldn't it help here? So all your task is to be able to technically implement it, only technically. Just make it so it will fit, it will do its thing. Absolutely believe me that. And indeed, that's what happened. You know what it gave me? It allowed me to approach the canvas for the first time that I ever did without paying the price that other artists do when they attempt to just be bold and just approach the canvas when they while they didn't do it ever before, you know.
Sure.
So here I actually came to a surface that other people need a year to prepare, metaphorically speaking,
Sure.
before they will be deserved. So what he did to me, he gave me that much that when I went and entered my first painting, I already came with this bombastic title that overtook everything and forced me to create what I was creating. Nuclear Age with Hope.
Mm.
That was my first project ever. Didn't know how to paint, how to nothing. So it goes to show you, you know, sometimes people give us treasures
Oh yeah.
and we don't notice that indeed that's the nature of it.
Yeah.
Until we do, and then we cannot do without.
Yeah. Well, I think it's easy if you're, like, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, but I'm not, it's not like I'm super accomplished and like what I like. I don't, I'm still like basically pretty much like the beginning part of this journey in a lot of ways. And but I think it's easy if you're in a position of like, say you're a teacher, to sort of cut yourself off from learning, or be like, well, this. But I try to always look at it and be like, what can I learn or gain from this? What can I gain? I'm just borrowing ideas basically from everything that I grab. Like there's this God, and I forgot that, but there's this interesting gallery in like Palm West Palm Beach or something, like in a like a former, I forgot what it was called, but there's this one photographer there that took these really interesting shots of, like, one was like this distinct photo I remember of like this girl like lighting a cigarette on a um uh over a gas stove, and it was like very like the stove was very colorful, like what she was wearing was very like there was all this stuff, and I was like, oh, that's like a perfect image for a movie. That's like that's a scene that I want to create. And I think how I'm always just looking at stuff like, what can I borrow for other projects, or like what can, like, and I'm just, yeah, I'm always trying to sort of like
Yeah.
just steal different ideas so that I can communicate my ideas better, or more in a more interesting way, or something, or whatever. So
Well,
anyway.
it's interesting. I can tell you in 1984, the winter of 1983-84, I was in San Francisco.
Hmm.
And we lived, my girlfriend and I lived on Fulton between Arguello and 3rd, which is not far away from the university.
Sure.
So it's like at the edge of the park, the Golden Gate Park, and then it's like, I don't know, 45 blocks to the ocean if you go from the university. So we lived on Fulton, which is parallel to the park,
Sure.
a main road parallel to the park that leads you to the ocean also. And we lived right on the edge. So we used to just leave the house, cross Fulton, and enter the beginning of Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, park,
Okay.
and play frisbee for 40 blocks all the way to the ocean. So my girlfriend and I were kind of walking, and we're shooting frisbee as we're walking
Jeez.
hundreds of times until we reach, but we don't stop shooting frisbee. So, so one day we're sitting home, and she said, "Listen, why are you sitting here right now, here like this? Take your notebook, go to the park, and do the same thing we're doing with frisbee, but alone. Walk and write poetry."
Mm.
So I was like so astonished by the fact that I have someone next to me that's telling me something like this,
Yeah.
like you're a genius and I love you anyway. And of course I'm gonna go out and do it.
Hmm.
It was a ritual for 5 months that we lived there. And I did it every possible time that was possible. I did it, and I filled notebook after notebook, aphorisms, proverbs, storytelling poetry. Didn't spend 1 second thinking whether I'm capable of doing it or not, because if I would have stopped for 1 second, it would be like a death sentence to this wonderful creative process.
Yeah.
Self-awareness, a sense of inferiority, insecurity, everything will roll in. We're not immune.
Sure.
Who needs this? So already then, I remained uh, um, humble for many years, preferred to be in the background.
Mm.
Wanted to find ways to influence, but not by being in the forefront. You can influence from the back also. You shoot, you can do the things. So it was an incredible thing to uh, grow as an artist, and then you go to through a period, and then and then you're left with a reservoir of achievements,
Mm-hmm.
good or bad. It doesn't matter. This is a material you would have to go through whether you like it or not. That's the thing.
Mm.
You're gonna have to read it at least once. A lot of writers write this way or that way, and they don't necessarily read everything that they write.
Yeah.
There's a huge group of people that just like they know they have a lot,
Sure. Sure. Sure.
and they continue doing to make it more than a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting about that, and I know this wasn't like the the point of that story, but you basically combine something that you were already doing with an artistic endeavor or otherwise that you wanted to explore more of. And I think about that a lot, sort of like in the creation process, which is like, how can I make this easy on myself? Because like the easy, like obviously, like just the act of creating stuff and sitting down to do it is in and of itself like challenging enough. But if you can combine it with something that you're already doing, then it it takes the like, oh man, all right, now I have to set aside time for this, and then I have to do the thing and like whatever. And I think it makes it so much easier to then do the thing, and then before you know it, you're like, wow, I actually really enjoy this, and I've gotten good at it. And I enjoy writing poetry, or I enjoy painting on canvases, or like I enjoy interviewing people on a podcast or whatever. um, and that I think about that a lot with like pretty much everything I do is like, how can I just take something that I'm already doing, throw in maybe like a couple cameras or a mic or a journal or a canvas or whatever, and then just make it part of already how I'm interacting with the world.
I would probably make a movie if I could have about a family that one day the father will come and say, "There's something I need to share with you," with the entire family, and say, "Yes." He said, "I rented our living room." So that's how the movie was all about, the
Okay.
implications of what it means that the, and it's really wild because it goes on to some really wild things down the road.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
yeah, but
Okay. All right. Let's explore this some more. Okay. Wait.
no, no,
Why?
no, no. I'm
Why
not.
did he rent the
No, I
living?
know. I'm not going to explore that. I'll tell you why. Because
Okay.
no, because I want to continue add on to what you said just a minute before.
Sure.
Um, I you described it fairly well, but when you get to do it a lot, this will be uh, an explanation that doesn't sound like one.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
sure.
Like
Yeah.
second nature of
Right.
type. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. It's like
So
Steven
how do you?
Spielberg being like, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not
No, 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 no,
obviously
no. I'm not.
comparing,
I'm not. I'm just
but
relating to the it, not
like,
to the you,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Sure.
But wait. But then you say, wait a second. So okay. So how? If I feel more accomplished on the drum set
Sure.
than in front of the canvas, okay, fine. I established this point. But what am I doing with it? And if I know what I'm going to do, I need to know how am I going to do it.
Hmm.
I know this concept. I approach the. I can do one or two things: approach the drums without knowing what the heck is going on or what's just about to happen, or approach the drums knowing that you have the direction, the concept. But both times, most likely, will be the same. You wouldn't be able to actually. You would be, but it will be not the way you want it to happen.
Sure.
To actually actualize form, intent, storyline, whatever,
Sure.
and all that. But I found a way, and I said, okay, so I played I played jazz in jam sessions in the early days, and I wasn't so good, and I was this, and I learned here, and I listened to this, and I listened to that, and it was always like this saxophone player that used to tell me, "Yeah, you play jazz really, really. I love the way you play jazz, but you know what? Try to revisit basics more often.
Mm.
You know, so in the midst of that, yeah, the two and the four, and then suddenly there's um, a a single stroke roll, double stroke roll, triala, paradiddle. Okay, so,
Sure.
and I can do that 100 times over and over again. I don't have to be the best drummer in the world.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I can just through all these bars do. Okay, anyway. So let's just say that I can take this and I can replicate it in a more sophisticated way on the drums. And I can take all these degrees and introduce it to the canvas.
Mm.
But how do you introduce this to the canvas?
Mm.
Is that you go bodily wise, ready physically, the way you're ready for the drum set. So at least you will be sure that something will happen. That means you will come back from it after you established a fairly complete task. Of its nature, that's not our business now. That's later on for you, for people, whatever. Now it's like, okay, you completed a friggin' cycle here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Intent, everything. There's so immediately something that people noticed that it wasn't there before. What just happened? So you do it about a dozen times, then in the middle of that painting, that is painting number 15 by now, and you're facing this difficulty, suddenly you abandon it, you go to the electric drum set, and you go whatever.
Uh-huh.
Something that you know that is complete, that is disciplined, that is time.
Mm-hmm.
And you establish that zone of comfort with your the medium. This is one
Yeah.
medium. The easel is another. The iPad is another. You
Sure.
can actually be very, very cliche.
Mhm.
Of course, nobody would be there to observe what you're doing, and that's your advantage.
Yeah.
You yourself and you guarantee throughout the process.
Sure.
But the thing is that even if you want to kind of pretend in order to achieve something when you're alone and nobody is watching you, you still need to keep a straight face through the process, even though there's no company there. Because the straight face usually is because there's company. You've been observed. So if there's a face that you want to put on, it's got to be consistent.
Sure.
Keep a straight face. So here, this is still required of you, even if you're alone in the room. And you yourself and your mediums, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
must go through the grinding teeth of clichéness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To give it enough room. And even in a very polite way, whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't want to sound too obvious, too predictable.
Yeah.
But that's you know what I'm trying to relate to, how it can
Just
fall together.
the struggle of like creating, right? Is like essentially like that through am I like
of creating meaning.
okay, you're okay, yeah. So like how do you
Now this is cliche. Creating meaning is it sounds even.
Sure,
Okay,
yeah.
continue.
But like creating art is like basically just copying other things that already exist anyway, right? So it is in and of itself inherently cliche. It is impossible for to not be cliche, but if you copy enough different things together, then it's new. And then people are like, "Whoa, that's new." And it's like, "Well, I was basically just copying everything anyway." But I think to your point, there are like two ways to at least I tend to steer towards just like if I'm facing a problem with like an edit and it doesn't make sense, I often will just like kind of sit there and like stew and then feel bad for myself and then like just like kind of be like and then grind it, and go through that process of like grinding in order to like create the meaning. But I know a lot of artists, and like a lot of my friends, and it sounds like in you as well, this is sort of like an approach that you take, which is like, okay, this isn't, it doesn't immediately make sense or land the way I want it to. I'm going to like basically turn the canvas around, sit behind a drum set, focus on something that I know is a lot more predictable, and until my brain or psyche or whatever comes up with a solution that feels good, and then I can go back to the canvas and then create meaning. I don't know.
Yeah. No. This is I can relate to every bit
Yeah,
of your description. Yeah. Yeah, but the thing is that maybe it's easier for me because my medium is a little more forgiving. I'm there. I'm with the brush. I mean, I cannot go wrong really.
sure.
If you think
Yeah.
about it, it's just like I remember when I spent time with second graders through Project Most in the early days of Project Most. I remember bringing my full acoustic set, bringing a an easel,
Mm-hmm.
bringing a blackboard, and bringing a video camera.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to 15 kids, having 250, 300 tubes of paint in a bag, choosing a boy or girl, giving him the a video camera, and said, "This doesn't stop recording. You record all the time." And then I emptied the paint on the floor, and I asked them, "Do you think we have enough paint?"
Uh-huh.
And it was like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And then, okay, today we're going to stick to blue shades. So let's sort through these and pick up the blues
Okay.
and separate them from the group. So we're sitting and we're doing this, and then I said, "Oh no! I think I'm gonna put this red here also." And then I started kind of adding things, and they're doing their thing. Suddenly they notice. They say, "But wait a second! You said only blues. Why are you? Why are you?" I said, "Because I'm not so sure." So then I kind of made them stop, and then I continued that demonstration, saying, "Okay, I think I'm going to use the black and this white. No, I'm not going to use the black. I'm going to use okay this bright blue. I'm going to bring it. The three shades of yellow. I'm going to no this shade. I'm going to take back." I said all these dark blues, and then this red I really love, and this kind of orange I really love. No, I'll take back the orange. So anyway, I did this, and then I asked him, "So what do you see? What do you see? What?" So he said, "We're seeing someone who cannot make up his mind." Okay. So I said, "Do you know what it takes not to be able to make up your mind? You have to make so many decisions
Mm-hmm.
not to do.
Mm.
No, I'm going to do this. No, I'm changing my mind. You have to continuously change your mind all the time. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's not like you literally an ongoing eh, multiple levels happening at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know how quickly they grasped it? You know how quickly they grasped it? It was unbelievable that they understood that if I demand from them harshness, let's just say, okay, the drum set, here's the symbol. What's the harshest way to approach this? Who thinks like that? With adults, you're getting nowhere.
Mm.
With 7-year-olds, you're getting somewhere
Mm-hmm.
because they can interact with you immediately by proving to you the action. So they're all saying, you know, really kind of touching as softly as possible, but all the way to just the vibration of the wind without touching it. That's moving the and then we're going to that for the sake of writing poetry because we add words to that blackboard. It, we build up an awareness that reaches gestures as words.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Sure.
You know how they grasped it? Do you think it took me more than once to establish a memory from this, an experience? So next session, when I say, "Okay, guys, we're going to cross implement now.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever it ends up being in this week that we haven't seen each other, we're going to dig it out and import it
Yeah.
to what we have to work with now." Each one of them drew on the canvases. They had like 15 brushes. Each one of them played on the drums at least 3 to 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of them understood what it means to engage in freestyle zone, and especially if you have creative mediums such as what I'm talking about. And I feel that sometimes also you can achieve that just by dealing only with one medium. So you don't have to be like all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
You can be all over the place in your head with and through one medium. I'm
Sure.
sure. I'm sure you're familiar with that feeling, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just like combining. And well, I mean, first of all, I have massive ADHD to begin with, so it's always like anytime I start with something, it's and if you look at any of my my drawing, certainly, I mean, I'm a terrible like drawer, but it's very like you can just tell like there's a lot going on in my brain in terms of like this person has like a text bubble above it and there's like all sorts of different colors and it's just like this frenetic sort of energy.
Yeah.
And I think you bring that to anything that you're doing. I think like to your point, adults really struggle with that stuff because I think especially if you haven't if you don't define yourself like as an artist, which I think everyone innately knows how to create, like it's easy enough to pick up the phone, and point it at stuff, or to do a stroke on a canvas, or like what, or take a photo. It's easy enough to do those things, but I think we build up a lot of resistance, especially like in our, in like Western society, because it's not as common to like just be creative. And it's sort of, I mean, even though I think everyone is inherently and innately creative and can make things, it just takes a lot of, time and energy and, whatever. But so I think adults have a lot of resistance that kids don't have. um Kids will like throw them, like if you give them a prompt like just make this chaotic or make this frenetic or just take the blues, easy, right? Because there isn't that resistance that's been built up over the course of several decades that is preventing them from being able to explore that, the playfulness of making stuff. Whereas with adults there is a lot of that. It's like I think half of teaching anybody something, if not more, maybe even like 80 or 90% of it is just pushing through that resistance so that they can get out of their own way and make the thing. um and I think once you're able to get past that, then just the act of creating is just, you just do it.
Yeah,
It's not that
absolutely.
complicated. Yeah.
But thank God we can. Just before I continue, let's just mention Mike Kilcoyne.
Yes.
I remember it. Oh, good. And
Nailed it.
and Friday morning, Memorial Day weekend, unbelievable. It's 2024 here with the Hello Hello Show and Public Access TV, and of course, this weekend ahead of us. Let's call it the weekend of forgiveness. forgive, forgive all those who came to our neighborhood now and kind of supposedly take over, but rather, people in need of love and consideration and patience. And
Mm.
that's how we should, maybe find a way to make it easier on them. And when you see someone who doesn't know how to make up their mind to turn right or left, take a deep breath. You should be fine. Um,
Mm.
but wanted to kind of stage three of this kind of interaction that
Okay.
is very charged would be the if you're lucky enough to create
Yes.
enough
Oh, it's
full body of work now. Okay, so now let's just say that we're not even dealing with this problem. We have conquered many obstacles and many this, and we made it possible for ourselves to create a body of work. Okay,
mm-hmm.
that's something that nobody can argue with, good or bad, regardless. Here's what I have to show for. So if you want to initiate, you can make phone calls. You can rent the lousiest open squarish, roomish, somewhere-ish,
Mm-hmm.
and hang 2 dozen of your work with labels and this and that. Not even advertise. Let the world discover out of nowhere.
Sure.
It doesn't matter really. So you're thinking the power of documentation, your own work, just like that. Nobody came, or maybe 2,000 people came. but at the end of the day, I'm documenting it.
Mm-hmm.
Video, shots, images, whatever. So, unfortunately, that's the only way to survive
Yeah.
in this unforgiving landscape that the system doesn't give you a chance uh, to survive this impact, pam, and then it's not generous as
No.
it could be. I mean,
No.
to tell you, I know if your art teacher or whatever, even if he or she would believe that maybe you don't have what it takes, which is an awful thing to think. It's like, what the heck? Okay, let's just say we can get past that, but at least say, I remember in my boarding school, I, there were kids from 20 countries, and I think the majority was from Russia in the mid early mid 70s in Israel.
Wow.
So I
Okay.
picked up some Russian there, because it's
Sure.
like we're kids.
Yeah.
So the English teacher that we had there
Uh-huh.
was also a his specialty was Russian. So he heard about me, and he came to chat with me in Russian.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I couldn't speak fluently, but anyway. And then he continued to say, that there's not much that you will be able to do in the future with this language. Because he said, "Why are you speaking Russian? Why?" I said, "I don't know, whatever. I don't know, whatever." I said, he crushed me.
Yeah.
Years later, I'm still thinking about it as a very constructing point of reference to me,
Yeah.
that someone tells you something that the world can do without.
Yeah.
This declaration by someone.
What's
And
the point of that?
yeah, what's the point of that? Thank you.
What? Yeah. Like what? I'm just curious. Like what? Yeah.
The point the
The point aside from just make themselves feel a little bit better, right? It's so fascinating. I had a this was the first sales job I had, and I ultimately got fired. But I had a sales manager who was just a real um, he just wasn't a good dude, honestly. And I just remember him being like, "Do you think you belong in sales?" And I was like, "I mean, I think I could figure it out. Like it's not rocket science. And even if it was, I think if I did it for a long enough period of time and had enough mentor, I mean, rocket science might be a little bit too much, but I'm not going to get carried away here. But um, I think I could figure it out." And his response was essentially like, I don't think so." And in my next sales job, I was one of like the top.
You mean I don't think so? You can make a sale? Is that what
Yeah,
you
yeah.
said?
Like
Got it.
I like essentially like
Got it.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And in my next sales job, I did well. Like and I was one of the top sales reps, right? And so it's like I think that first of all, if that's somebody's modus operandi, or however you pronounce it, of being in the world, it's not. First of all, that's not a good person to also judge how to be in the world, because their way of being is like, oh, I'm here to squash other people. I'm not here to bring people up. I'm not here to celebrate them. I'm not here to help them. I'm here to squash them. That's just somebody like that's first of all, you just ignore them. And and it's not a good way of being, because inherently we are insanely malleable. We can learn anything. We can, like, if you have enough resilience and willingness to just try things and fail and so on, you can figure anything out. So if somebody's way of being is like, yeah, I just don't, I don't think you should do, it's like, well, screw them, like that's just not constructive. And I try to surround myself with, and unfortunately, like in this industry there, and in any creative industry, and I'm sure you've run into plenty of people like this, whether it be like curators or art collectors or whatever, just being like, this isn't the kind of art that somebody buys, or like, you should do this art because this no longer sell, or like this, they're basically just trying to they have a certain perspective on the world. It may or may not be valid. And they are fortunate enough in that they're in a position where they're basically a gatekeeper, but it's not like, who cares? It's like, at the end of the day, like, you're not going to stop making art. So why you care? Or if you're interested in learning Russian, you're not going to stop learning Russian.
Yeah, yeah.
So why? Who
But
cares?
because again, the system. Look, I know it's not realistic to think that everyone who will have space in a college to study, because there's
Sure.
just too many millions that are really talented and great.
Yeah.
Okay, but the, the, the system can make it obvious on how to fend for yourself, because
Sure.
obviously it's 1 out of 1,000 that will be accepted. So 999, we need to be kind to them and say, well, at least let us give you this is our crown. The crown is all about, listen, you can go out there and achieve pretty much the same out there if you're willing,
Yeah.
as much as we require you to be willing, even if you were to be accepted,
Yeah.
then this is the way. But of course, this is fiction. Look, the most simple, down to earth realization how human beings should behave towards one another, whether it's on the academic level or whatever other level, is people. It's like it's a problem. It's not happening the way it's supposed to happen.
Mm.
So what happens is that and I can tell you from hands on, yeah, okay, 1997, my first show, my first realization that I'm actually a painter,
Mm-hmm.
and that was by 15 different miracles had to happen
Sure.
for me to be saying, okay, fine, fine. My girlfriend told me, you're good. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't want to know. Let's show it. Let's this and that. So
Uh-huh.
otherwise, I would be like, first of all, it would have never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Even I wouldn't even begin to understand what it takes. It was just a big no, impossible. Wouldn't be on the agenda. Wouldn't be considered as a probability at all.
Yeah.
So here I am. I'm actually fully engaged immediately. Once I got into it,
Mm-hmm.
it was like this understanding. But the system itself,
Oh, it's
it
super
will
flawed.
crush
Yeah.
you mercilessly.
Yeah.
You are a
Yes.
moron and you're stupid,
Yeah. Yeah.
even though we will
Yeah.
make it sound like we're actually
Yeah.
grown ups, and I'm telling you,
Sure.
I'm giving you a professional point of view.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
if it's not the system, then it's
it's called
parents.
deception.
It's parents. It's friends. It's it's somebody you run into at an art show or a premiere or whatever. Like, there's something. Well, and I think that that's also just inevitable, right? Like, when you're doing something that, because I think a lot of people, they view it as, oh, if I can't do that, then why are you allowed to do that? Like, that's no, like, no. If I can't do that, or I choose not to do that, or whatever, then, like, then no, it's impossible. Yeah, sure, that person's doing it, but, like, that's that, like, you should make sure you have, like, a backup plan, and or two or three, and it's like, well, um I think I I I just think that you're right. There isn't a lot of support in doing this stuff, because inherently you're going against what makes logical sense, which is, like, you follow this XYZ path and the outcome is Y. Whereas, like, if you're an artist, and let's say you haven't been surrounded by art, like, I don't know what your upbringing was like, but I would imagine, like, if you didn't get started early, probably didn't have a lot of, like, parents or parental figures that were artists, so you didn't necessarily have that, like, oh, okay, this is possible because this person who's my parental figure is already doing it. You're already, like, fighting against the grain, and then, of course, like, then you can even go even further and talk about, like, being a Jew, and how much, I'm certainly, like, Jewish culture does value art and creativity and like giving back and contributing to that, but money is also a much bigger piece of it. And the notion with art is that it's impossible to make money and it's impossible to be successful and wealthy, so like why would you do that when you can just be an attorney, like, and you'll be way
But
more
you can be
successful.
an attorney and be a good painter and a good
Exactly.
painter. I don't understand why
Oh yeah, well, and one of my good friends, out here does that. It's
if I
like,
was to hear myself now,
yeah,
when in 1997, I would, I would say this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But it's not that simple. Yeah, but I think I was lucky to learn, and yeah, it took a while, but it could have been worse. So now when I see it, I call it.
sure,
Fellow artists, they do stuff. I say, do you mind if I point something out? And I don't really care how they're going to react, because I know that if they will kind of practice it and
hmm,
do kind of use it, they will benefit from it.
sure,
It's like I don't need to stay around to see if indeed they benefited from it, because I know if and when they're going to do it, they're going to benefit from it.
yes,
There's no option here. There's like, oh, I'm so disappointed, it ruined my life. No,
yeah,
that's not going to happen.
no,
So now, for example, but how do I fill in the gap? And we have like 5 more minutes.
sure,
How
sure,
do
sure,
we fill in the gap? Now the gap is this. Okay, so I'm an artist. Okay,
okay,
so so and who am I to impress all these great people surrounding me? Community full of great artists.
yeah,
Who am I?
yeah,
Who am I? I'm a no. Who am I? How they will take me freaking 40 years, 50 years to live in to bring any kind of decent impact, if at all. So
yeah,
immediately, as I said, cross implementation, I brought into the equation work ethics of mine from painting houses and working hard all my life.
sure,
And I said, you know what? I'm going to humble everything and everyone by my technical ability to erect an exhibition and just put it there and make it look effortless. And coming to the opening, anybody would look at my face, wouldn't know. So, like, would think someone else is doing the work for you.
sure,
But you're doing the work from A to Z. So I learned that when I did that, people didn't have time to critic my art,
yeah,
because they wouldn't have time to relate to the art. It's just too much around, too many question marks and kind of surprises. You're coming into this and you have questions, and then you realize you don't have time to start examining the friggin' painting. You're kind of saying this is all friggin' great, but let me understand, how did he do that?
yeah. Well, I mean,
And from there you capitalize,
yeah,
meaning, and you have to, because you know. So you do 2, 3, 4, 5 times like this,
hmm,
and make people wonder, well, this is really, some people even came and told me, we're not so sure you're painting it, which was the biggest compliment I could have ever gotten in my life. They didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Well, whatever.
Or like, did
Am I
you
going to
do
argue with
that?
them?
Yeah,
Yeah. I said, whatever.
yeah.
Even if I was able to tell people to do that, I should get credit by being able to.
Oh yeah,
Even with artificial intelligence, you need to friggin' ask for something.
yes,
Ask a question.
yeah,
And the more, the better the question is, the better the AI can provide you with whatever, unraveling mysteries and whatnot. But what I'm trying to say is that I I brought that, and there I displayed confidence.
sure,
They came not from painting paintings, but while I'm painting paintings, from a different platform that I just brought it with me just a little bit while I'm in this platform.
hmm.
So I'm really confident. And I look at the pigment and everything makes sense no matter what I do, what I use. The intent is creating the order, but it's wild, it's freestyle, it's abstract, it's everything. It's everything. It's a mesh, but there's the decency of understanding the relationship between colors, and how you prevent from ending up with something muddy, which we don't like at all.
Hmm.
And something, but that coherence is the definition of the shape and the vibrance of the pigment and all this proximity to shape to one another. It's right there. Genius is right there. It's not the word. No, it's not here. It's this square. Was it real? What was it right? Should I change it from blue to yellow? Whatever. Questions like this are very crucial.
Yeah.
And then when you need to change it from green to red, it's a task and a half. You understand what I'm saying? But you're bringing that into the equation of just being a technician,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
let the people come in, and then we're almost done. 2 minutes,
Yeah.
And anyway, so but you know what? I'm going to give you the last word. How about that?
Okay. Last word.
Last sentence.
Last sentence. Well, I think effectively
3 minutes.
If as an artist and a good artist, you are people are paying you because you have good taste. Like that's basically because you've curated or they perceive you to have good taste. So whether or not, I mean, if you look at like Frank Lloyd Wright, right? Like he had, dozens and dozens of apprentices and art. So he wasn't doing all of the work on a lot of those designs, but he has good taste, right? So he hires good people. He's the one that's helping them curate and design, the ultimate final designs. And before it goes out, he gives his rubber stamp of approval.
Yeah.
And that's what he's getting paid for.
Mhm.
He's not getting paid to just do all the work.
Yes.
And that's true of, that was true of Andy Warhol and all these other great artists. And so I think at the end of the day, you have gotten good enough at the craft to know this, I think this is interesting. I have good taste. It doesn't matter whether or not you're doing the work. Like certainly for a lot of the stuff you will, and I think that's really like what people are investing in. They're just investing in you've spent all this time and energy and resources on crafting your own interesting taste so that I don't have to think about it and I will pay you a premium for that.
Yes, but also there's it becomes you develop your style to a point where you cannot have someone imitate just by style doing it for you.
Of course.
Yeah, so they already know that I reached a level that I cannot fake it by letting someone else do it. So that means there's someone else doing it just as good as I'm doing it. That's bad news.
Sure.
No, it doesn't work this way. But anyway, in that sense, that's a nice conclusion, I think. To is there any way to begin with? And we need to accept it as such. Let's just say that we're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were here yesterday, as much as we were here this morning, Friday morning, May 24th, year 2024, here with the Hello Show. Memorial Day weekend. That's wonderful. And Mike Kilcoyne is here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, this is great.
Now you will have time to wonder what is it that we're going to talk about.
Okay, great.
Now you can start thinking about it. No?
Okay, good.
So anyway, enjoy the weekend. And,
you too. Thank you.
And don't be a stranger. You're invited to come here and, and sit and chat.
I'll be here every week.
And don't come ready, please. Don't come ready.
Yeah. Okay, great deal. No, I like,
Okay, good job. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too.